Common traits of habitual liars. Recognizing chronic deception. Introduction. The art of deception and its unseen masters. The lies we tell and the shadows they cast. Lies are not always loud. They are often whispered, disguised in well-practiced smiles, hidden in an unsteady breath between words. Deception walks among us, lacing conversations with half-truths and fabricating realities. Some lie for survival, others for advantage. But a select few habitual liars do not merely lie. They weave, twist, and distort, transforming deception into second nature. In this journey, we will unravel the traits, motivations, and psychological mechanisms of habitual liars, the individuals for whom lies are more than a tool, but an essential part of their identity. From the evolution of deception to its emotional toll on both the liar and the deceived, this documentary-style exploration will expose the lies and the minds behind them. The psychology of deception. When lying becomes a habit, many believe lying is a choice when truth is abandoned for convenience or gain. However, studies in behavioral psychology suggest that habitual liars may not always perceive themselves as making a conscious choice. Instead, deception becomes instinctual, a default mode rather than an occasional tactic. According to a study published in Nature Neuroscience, Garrett et al., 2016, repeated dishonesty reconfigures brain activity. The more a person lies, the weaker their emotional response to their deception, leading to increased dishonesty over time. This phenomenon, known as dishonesty adaptation, suggests that habitual liars are not merely choosing to deceive, they are neurologically conditioned to do so. Additionally, research from the American Psychological Association (APA) identifies two primary categories of compulsive deception: pathological lying, pseudologia fantastica. Lies that serve no obvious purpose, often exaggerated or entirely fictitious. Strategic deception. Lies intended to manipulate outcomes or gain an advantage. Where does one end and the other begin? And how do habitual liars rationalize their actions? When the truth becomes too heavy to hold for many habitual liars, deception begins not as a weapon but as a shield. Childhood trauma, fear of rejection, or the need for validation often serve as early catalysts for compulsive dishonesty. Studies have linked chronic deception to environments where truth was punished, where honesty led to ridicule, harm, or abandonment. Dr. Paul Ekman, a renowned psychologist specializing in facial microexpressions, theorizes that lying is deeply tied to survival instincts. His research in deception detection suggests that many chronic liars lie not out of malice, but because truth feels unsafe. The web of lies and its collateral damage. One of the most significant consequences of habitual deception is the emotional exhaustion it inflicts, not just on the liar, but on those trapped in their orbit. Friends, family, colleagues. Each encounter slowly erodes trust, turning relationships into battlegrounds between doubt and denial. In a study on interpersonal deception theory, Buller and Burgoon, 1996, researchers found that habitual liars often engage in self-deception, convincing themselves of their fabricated stories. This allows them to maintain confidence while lying, making their deception harder to detect. Intro. Deception. An age-old art, honed by unseen masters, hidden in the whispers of half-truths and the shadows of manipulation. It is a craft as ancient as storytelling itself, where words become weapons and trust, a fragile illusion. We live among those who weave falsehoods effortlessly, turning their deception into second nature, so seamless that even they start to believe the lies they tell. Welcome to OceanHeap, where knowledge and fun converge. Today, we step into the intricate labyrinth of habitual lying, exploring the traits that define chronic deception and the ways to recognize it before it consumes the bonds we hold dear. Let's unravel the layers of deceit, not to judge, but to understand. Chapter 1. Origins of Deception. How lying becomes a habit. The first lie. A moment or a catalyst. Most lies begin in childhood, not as sinister deception, but as a simple act of avoiding consequences. A child spills a glass of juice and, fearing punishment, tells a small lie, "It wasn't me." Harmless at first, but it plants a seed. This lie spares them trouble, evades blame, and, most importantly, works. The psychological reinforcement begins. However, for some individuals, lying evolves beyond childhood mistakes. It grows, adapts, and embeds itself into their psyche, becoming not just a choice but a necessity. Psychology of early dishonesty. The brain's first encounter with deception. Studies suggest that a child's first lie is a milestone in cognitive development. According to a study published in Developmental Psychology, Talwar and Lee, 2002, children begin to experiment with deception between the ages of 2 and 4, signaling advanced problem-solving skills and emotional intelligence. However, repeated lying creates a cycle of reinforcement. The brain registers deception as an adaptive behavior, meaning habitual lying can develop when children realize dishonesty provides safety, attention, or reward. The role of environment. How lies become a survival mechanism. For some, lying isn't a playful childhood experiment. It's a means of survival. In households where truth is met with punishment, rejection, or ridicule, deception becomes a shield rather than a moral failing. Studies show that children raised in overly strict or emotionally volatile homes are significantly more likely to adopt deception as a coping mechanism. American Journal of Psychology, 2018. They learn that truth can lead to consequences while dishonesty grants escape. This cycle extends into adulthood. Habitual liars often do not see their deception as manipulation but as protection, a deeply ingrained pattern that they may no longer recognize, the choice to lie. The social reinforcement of lying. In adolescence and adulthood, deception begins serving new purposes. 2. Gaining social approval, exaggerating status, wealth, or experiences to fit in. 3. Avoiding shame, masking failures or insecurities behind false successes. 4. Manipulating situations, using deception to gain control or influence. According to research published in the Journal of Behavioral Decision-Making, 2015, habitual liars often lie in ways that avoid detection. Their deceit is not always grand or obvious. It is subtle, strategic, and blended with truths. Neurological changes in habitual liars. One of the most startling findings in deception research is that chronic lying physically changes the brain. A groundbreaking study in Nature Neuroscience, Garrett et al., 2016, reveals that repeated dishonesty suppresses emotional responses to lying, making deception easier over time. MRI scans show reduced activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain associated with guilt and fear, among individuals who lie frequently. This suggests that habitual liars do not experience emotional distress from lying in the same way others do. Their brains have adjusted, making deception their default state. The first step toward chronic deception. Lying starts as a moment, a reflex, a decision. But over time, it shifts from conscious choice to instinct. As deception becomes effortless, habitual liars lose sight of when honesty was their natural state. Chapter 2, Compulsive versus Manipulative. Understanding the difference. The anatomy of habitual lies. Not all habitual liars deceive with the same intent. Some fabricate stories out of impulse, compulsively, without any clear reason. Others lie strategically, manipulating situations for personal gain. While both types share a pattern of deception, their motivations, behaviors, and psychological mechanisms differ greatly. Understanding these distinctions helps uncover whether a liar feels a compulsive need to distort reality or deliberately crafts lies to control others. The compulsive liar, a prisoner of their own fabrications. Compulsive liars lie without thinking. Their deception is often unnecessary, exaggerations, distortions, or outright fabrications that serve no logical purpose. They don't always lie for personal gain. Instead, deception is an instinct that emerges without their full awareness. Studies from the American Journal of Psychiatry, 2019, indicate that individuals with compulsive lying exhibit heightened activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for impulse control. This suggests that habitual lying in compulsive individuals may be less about intent and more about the inability to stop. Some traits of compulsive liars include spontaneous exaggeration. They overstate events to make their lives seem more interesting. Contradictions in past stories, details shift over time, often unintentionally. Little regard for the consequences, they lie reflexively even when unnecessary. A real-world case study highlights the impact of compulsive deception. In a documented psychological evaluation, Behavioral Psychology Review 2017, a patient named Alex had been fabricating stories since childhood, claiming achievements he never earned and relationships he never had. The strange part? He was not trying to deceive anyone intentionally. His brain processed lies faster than the truth, and he struggled to distinguish between reality and exaggeration. The manipulative liar. Deception as a weapon. While compulsive liars fabricate stories instinctively, manipulative liars craft deception deliberately. They lie with intent, often to gain control or exploit emotions. According to research from the Journal of Social Psychology, 2015, manipulative liars display traits linked to narcissistic and Machiavellian personalities. Their deception is premeditated and designed to serve a personal agenda. Key traits of manipulative liars include calculative dishonesty. They plan lies strategically rather than impulsively. Emotional exploitation, using deception to manipulate trust, guilt, or empathy. Selective truth-telling, mixing lies with truth to enhance credibility. One chilling example is the case of Sarah, detailed in the Psychology of Deception Journal, 2021. She exhibited pathological manipulation, deceiving colleagues, friends, and romantic partners for years. Unlike compulsive liars who struggle with impulse control, she knew exactly what she was doing, fabricating medical conditions, faking emotional distress, and guilt-tripping others into helping her. The intersection between compulsion and manipulation. While compulsive and manipulative liars appear distinct, some individuals blend both traits. A compulsive liar may develop manipulative tendencies if deception proves advantageous, while a manipulative liar may experience compulsive urges over time. This blurred boundary is explored in Clinical Psychological Science 2020 studies, which analyzed individuals displaying both impulsive and strategic deception patterns. Findings suggest repeated lying gradually shifts from an unconscious habit to an intentional skill. Conclusion: recognizing the signs, understanding the difference between compulsive and manipulative liars is crucial, not just for psychological study but for navigating relationships. Some habitual liars struggle with impulse control, while others consciously shape deception to serve their needs. Lying isn't always deliberate or accidental. It can be compulsive, fueled by instinct rather than reason, or manipulative, designed to shape reality to the liar's advantage. While both forms of deception involve habitual dishonesty, the motivation behind them sets them apart. The compulsive liar feels an uncontrollable urge to deceive, often without fully understanding why they do it. The manipulative liar, on the other hand, lies with intent, meticulously crafting falsehoods to control outcomes, influence others, or serve personal gain. The case of Liam. When compulsion blurs into manipulation at first glance, Liam seemed just another gifted storyteller. His recollections were vivid, his experiences seemed endless, and his anecdotes always bordered on the extraordinary. He spoke of near-death encounters, elite business deals, and friendships with celebrities. People found his stories captivating until patterns emerged. Friends began noticing inconsistencies. Details shifting from one retelling to another, timelines overlapping impossibly. When confronted, Liam laughed off the discrepancies, often brushing them aside with an amused look. "You know, sometimes I misremember things." But what started as harmless exaggeration morphed into something more profound. Liam began using deception to cover up professional failures, claiming non-existent promotions, fabricated pay raises, and false credentials. When backed into a corner, he doubled down, inventing elaborate excuses and accusing others of misunderstanding him. His compulsion to lie had evolved into manipulation, a means of preserving his identity and social credibility. His deception wasn't simply impulsive anymore, it was calculated. The psychological basis of compulsive lying studies from the American Journal of Psychiatry, 2019. Show that compulsive liars exhibit heightened activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for impulse control. This suggests their dishonesty may be less about intent and more about the inability to stop. Key traits of compulsive liars include reflexive exaggeration, lying without an apparent reason. Contradictions in past stories, details shift unpredictably. Low regard for consequences, lying instinctively even when unnecessary. For many compulsive liars, deception isn't meant to harm others. Rather, they fabricate stories to make life more interesting, shield themselves from scrutiny, or maintain a fragile sense of self-worth. The psychology behind manipulative lying. Unlike compulsive liars, manipulative deceivers lie with a purpose. They carefully craft deception to control outcomes, gain trust, or shift responsibility away from themselves. Research in the Journal of Social Psychology, 2015, connects manipulative deception to narcissistic and Machiavellian personality traits. These individuals plan lies strategically. Their deception is calculated rather than impulsive. Exploit emotions using guilt, empathy, or persuasion to influence others. Blend truth with lies, mixing authenticity into their deception makes them harder to detect. The evolution of deception. When compulsion becomes manipulation. Liam's case reflects a blurred boundary between compulsion and manipulation. His early lies may have been instinctive, but deception became his go-to survival mechanism as it provided him with social benefits. A study in Clinical Psychological Science, 2020, suggests that habitual lying gradually shifts from unconscious habit to intentional skill. The compulsive liar begins recognizing advantages in deception, leading them toward a more calculated approach. Conclusion. Recognizing the signs identifying whether someone is acting impulsively or manipulatively is crucial for understanding their psychology and navigating relationships. Chapter 3. The Role of Memory in Lying. When truth becomes fluid, the fragile relationship between lies and memory. Memory is often considered a fixed record, a reliable archive of events and experiences. But in reality, memory is malleable, shaped by perception, emotion, and external influence. For habitual liars, this fluidity is both a tool and a trap. While some deceivers knowingly alter their stories, others truly believe their fabrications. Their minds reconstruct events in ways that align with their deception, often blurring the line between truth and lie until they can no longer distinguish between the two. A case study, the deception of self. Consider Daniel, an individual studied in a psychological case review, Journal of Cognitive Neuroscience, 2021. As a child, Daniel often fabricated small, inconsequential stories claiming he had an older brother who didn't exist or telling classmates he had traveled the world. At first, these stories were mere fantasies. But over time, something strange happened. Daniel's repeated lies began replacing real memories. He told his fictional accounts so frequently that his brain processed them as truth. By adulthood, he recalled his non-existent brother with genuine emotional nostalgia, as if he had actually grown up alongside him. According to psychologists, this phenomenon is a form of self-deception reinforcement where habitual lying reconfigures memory to validate the deception. This raises a fascinating question. Do chronic liars know they are lying, or have their minds reshaped reality to fit their fabrications? The Neuroscience of Distorted Memories, a groundbreaking study in Nature Communications, 2016, reveals that repeated deception alters neural pathways in the brain, particularly in regions responsible for memory recall and emotional regulation. Key findings include, liars recall events differently. A lie may replace the real memory over time. Brain adaptation suppresses guilt. The more someone lies, the less their brain reacts emotionally. fabricated stories become convincing. Once deception is deeply ingrained, the liar may genuinely believe their falsehoods. This explains why habitual liars often contradict themselves without realizing it. Their minds process altered memories as truth even when the actual event differs. Memory reconstruction and its consequences. When chronic liars retell an event, their brain reconstructs the details rather than recalling the original experience. This can lead to shifting narratives. Their version of events changes over time. Selective memory deletion. Certain real details are unconsciously erased. Inconsistencies in storytelling. They unintentionally contradict past statements. Research from Cognitive Psychology Review 2018 examines this distorted memory recall. It shows that habitual deception rewires the brain's perception of truth, making false memories as emotionally vivid as real ones. The psychological impact on others. A critical aspect of habitual lying isn't just its effect on the liar, it's its impact on others. Friends, family, and colleagues often struggle to process how someone can lie convincingly even when confronted with indisputable facts. In many cases, habitual liars express genuine emotional distress when their false memories are challenged. Their brains have internalized deception so deeply that exposure to truth feels unnatural. Conclusion: the truth warped by lies. Memory is a fragile, evolving mechanism. For habitual liars, truth itself becomes fluid, shaped by repetition, emotion, and self-preservation. Chapter 4: The Art of Gaslighting, when lies become psychological warfare. The distortion of reality when lies control the mind. Lying is often seen as a simple act, an untruth meant to deceive or mislead. But gaslighting transforms deception into something far more insidious: the erosion of reality itself. A gaslighter does not merely lie, they make their victims doubt their perceptions, memories, and sanity. The goal isn't just to deceive, it's to control. In relationships, workplaces, and social structures, gaslighting is a weapon wielded by habitual manipulators to shift power in their favor. A case study: the manipulation of perception. Consider Emily, a victim of gaslighting in an emotionally abusive relationship. Her Psychological Review, Journal of Interpersonal Psychology, 2019, described how her partner, Mark, constantly altered details of their conversations, events, and shared experiences. One day, Mark promised to meet her for dinner at 7 p.m. When she arrived, he wasn't there. Confused, she called him, and he responded coldly, "I never said 7 p.m. You must be imagining things." Emily, despite vividly remembering his words, began doubting herself. This wasn't an isolated incident. Mark frequently denied past conversations, altered facts, and accused her of overreacting. Over time, she felt lost in a fog, unable to trust her own memory. This is the essence of gaslighting, making someone question their ability to distinguish truth from illusion. The psychological mechanisms behind gaslighting. Gaslighting follows specific behavioral patterns. According to research published in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology 2020, gaslighters rely on 4 key tactics. 1. Denial of reality, refusing to acknowledge past statements or events. 2. Twisting the truth, subtly altering details so the victim begins questioning themselves. 3. Deflecting blame, shifting responsibility and making the victim feel guilty. 4. Isolating the victim, encouraging doubt by making the victim rely on the gaslighter's version of events. The study also found that habitual gaslighters often display traits of narcissistic personality disorder, using deception not just to manipulate but to control the emotional stability of others. The emotional toll: when victims lose their sense of self. Long-term gaslighting can lead to severe psychological distress, including anxiety, depression, and loss of self-confidence. Victims often struggle with constant self-doubt. They question their memories, emotions, and perceptions. Emotional dependency: they feel reliant on the gaslighter to define truth. Psychological exhaustion: they experience chronic stress, paranoia, and confusion. Studies in the American Journal of Psychiatry 2018 reveal that victims of gaslighting often develop post-traumatic symptoms, particularly when manipulation occurs over extended periods. Conclusion: recognizing and resisting gaslighting. Gaslighting is more than deception, it is a strategic dismantling of another person's reality. Recognizing its signs is the first step toward escaping its grip.
Chapter 5. Lies for Sympathy, the Fabrication of Victimhood. The emotional currency of false victimhood. Some lies are told to manipulate facts. Others are told to manipulate feelings. For certain habitual deceivers, playing the victim becomes a powerful tool, allowing them to gain attention, evade accountability, or shift blame onto others. This deception exploits human empathy, positioning the liar as someone who deserves unquestioning support. Victimhood often follows a structured pattern. Fabrication of hardship. The liar creates false stories of suffering. Exaggeration of real events. Small hardships are magnified into crises. Deflection and blame shifting. Others are framed as aggressors, ensuring sympathy. These tactics transform the liar into a center of emotional gravity, drawing support and validation from those around them. A case study: the deception of pity. Consider Rachel, an individual documented in a psychological study, Journal of Behavioral Psychology, 2018. She frequently told stories about abusive past relationships, mistreatment by friends, and hardships she had supposedly endured. She claimed she had been betrayed, abandoned, and endlessly wronged. However, upon deeper investigation, psychologists found no evidence of these events. Former friends, colleagues, and partners described a different reality, one in which Rachel had often been the manipulator, creating conflict and distorting events to serve her narrative. When confronted, Rachel doubled down, insisting everyone conspired against her. Her deception had become her identity. The psychological mechanisms of sympathy lie. Studies in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology, 2020, reveal that individuals who fabricate victimhood often exhibit high levels of emotional dependency, seeking validation through deception. Key psychological markers include addiction to attention. They thrive on sympathy and validation. Narrative control. They frame themselves as innocent victims. Lack of accountability. Their lies absolve them of responsibility. The consequences of false victimhood. Fabricating suffering isn't just unethical. It has severe psychological and social consequences. Over time, habitual victimhood erodes trust. Once exposed, sympathy-driven liars lose credibility. Damages real victims. False claims delegitimize genuine hardship. Creates dependency. The liar becomes emotionally reliant on deception. A study in the Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Journal, 2019, found that chronic sympathy seekers struggle to form healthy relationships, as their manipulation creates emotional exhaustion in those around them. Conclusion: seeing through the lies of sympathy. False victimhood is a deceptive tool wielded by habitual liars to secure validation without accountability. Understanding its patterns is essential for recognizing manipulation. Chapter 6: The Power of Persuasion, How Chronic Liars Win Trust. The deceptive art of believability. No matter how outrageous, a lie can sound like the truth when told convincingly. Habitual deceivers don't just rely on deception, they master the art of persuasion, crafting their falsehoods in ways that compel belief. While some habitual liars manipulate facts, others manipulate emotions. They understand that trust isn't built on logic alone, it's shaped by confidence, consistency, and emotional resonance. When deception is woven into a carefully crafted narrative, even skeptical individuals can find themselves believing the impossible. A case study: the charisma of deception. Consider Michael, a former corporate executive whose career ended in scandal. Journal of Behavioral Economics, 2020. Michael wasn't just a skilled liar, he was a masterful persuader. He convinced investors to back fraudulent deals, employees to trust false financial records, and friends to believe in a lavish lifestyle that didn't exist. His deception was meticulously structured. He spoke with unwavering confidence, leaving no room for doubt. He surrounded his lies with truth, making them harder to detect. He tailored his falsehoods to individual targets, ensuring his words resonated emotionally. Michael's downfall came when an investigative journalist uncovered over a decade of falsified financial documents. Even then, many who had trusted him refused to believe the evidence. They were too invested in the narrative he had created. Psychological techniques habitual liars use to win trust. According to research published in the Journal of Social Psychology, 2019, chronic deceivers leverage several persuasion techniques. 1. Confidence over substance. They deliver falsehoods boldly, making skepticism seem unreasonable. 2. The power of consistency. They repeat lies with unwavering certainty, reinforcing their believability. 3. Blending lies with truth, they mix fabricated details into otherwise truthful stories. 4. Emotional manipulation, they appeal to emotions rather than logic, making their deception seem genuine. A study in Cognitive Behavioral Science 2021 found that habitual liars often use mirroring techniques, subtly copying the body language, speech patterns, and emotional responses of their targets. This creates a subconscious sense of familiarity, making the liar feel more trustworthy. The influence of persuasive deception in society. The power of persuasion isn't just used in personal relationships, it shapes politics, marketing, social influence, and even historical narratives. Some of history's most notorious figures relied on deception to build their legacies, convincing populations to accept false realities. Studies in Political Psychology Review 2018 suggest that individuals are more likely to trust confident falsehoods than uncertain truths, highlighting how persuasive liars manipulate societal perceptions. Conclusion: recognizing manipulative persuasion. Understanding how habitual deceivers craft believable lies is essential for resisting manipulation. The most dangerous lies aren't always the biggest ones, they are the ones spoken with absolute certainty. Chapter 7. Body Language Hacks, the Lies Hidden in Physical Gestures. The Silent Language of Deception. Words may lie, but the body struggles to keep up. While skilled habitual liars manipulate language effortlessly, their unconscious movements often betray their deception. Micro-expressions, posture shifts, and subtle gestures reveal truths hidden beneath false narratives if you know how to spot them. Psychologists and deception experts suggest that while liars can control their speech, their body often leaks involuntary signals of dishonesty. These cues may be subtle, but they offer critical clues about when someone is fabricating reality. A case study: The Face That Betrayed the Lie. Consider Jared, an executive under investigation for fraud, Journal of Behavioral Science, 2021. Throughout his interrogation, Jared maintained an unwavering verbal defense. His responses were articulate, confident, and seemingly airtight. But his body told a different story. During key moments, psychologists noticed fleeting expressions, micro-expressions lasting less than half a second, that revealed suppressed emotions. When asked about missing financial records, his facial muscles tightened briefly before he forced a smile. When questioned about an unauthorized transaction, he momentarily pressed his lips together, signaling discomfort before responding. Despite his verbal composure, experts detected over 15 unconscious gestures linked to deception, exposing the reality behind his fabricated words. The Science of Body Language in Lying. Studies in the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior, 2019, outline several key physical indicators of deception. Micro-expressions, brief, involuntary facial expressions that reveal suppressed emotions. Avoidant eye contact, excessive blinking or unnatural eye movement can signal discomfort. Self-soothing gestures, touching the face, neck, or arms frequently to ease anxiety. Sudden posture adjustments, shifting positions when facing uncomfortable questions. A study in Psychological Science, 2020, found that habitual liars exhibit more exaggerated gesturing than truth-tellers, often overcompensating to appear more believable. The role of nervous system responses. Lying triggers an internal stress response, leading to physical behaviors beyond conscious control. This is why experienced interrogators watch a suspect's body more than their words. Research in Cognitive Neuroscience Review 2018 explains that habitual liars develop suppression techniques to mask stress responses, but their bodies still react instinctively. Can skilled liars master their body language? Some habitual deceivers train themselves to reduce obvious signs of deception, making their falsehoods harder to detect. However, studies suggest that even the most skilled liars cannot eliminate micro-expressions or involuntary responses. Conclusion: watching for the unspoken signs. Recognizing deception goes beyond words. It requires observing the subconscious movements that accompany lies. Body language offers a window into unspoken truths, revealing deception where words often fall short. Chapter 8. The digital deceiver. How online lies differ from face-to-face. The evolution of deception in the digital age. Deception has existed for centuries, but the internet has reshaped the way people lie. With digital platforms allowing users to curate identities, fabricate stories, and hide behind anonymity, deception has become more accessible and more challenging to detect. Unlike face-to-face dishonesty, where body language and tone offer clues to deception, online lies rely entirely on written words, curated images, and digital manipulation. This lack of physical interaction makes it easier to fabricate elaborate falsehoods without immediate scrutiny. A case study: the digital manipulator. Consider Sophia, a social media influencer exposed for fabricating her life story. Journal of Digital Ethics, 2021. She built an online persona centered on luxury, travel, and high-profile connections, posting staged photos, altering reality in captions, and fabricating experiences she had never actually lived. Her deception wasn't just personal, it was profitable. Brands invested in sponsorships based on her fabricated reputation, and followers admired a lifestyle that didn't exist. However, when investigative journalists uncovered inconsistencies, exposing manipulated images and falsified business ventures, her entire digital empire came crashing down. Sophia's case illustrates the power and peril of online deception, where fabricated realities can influence perceptions, finances, and even reputations at an unprecedented scale. How the Internet enables habitual deception. Research from the Journal of Cyberpsychology, 2020, reveals several key ways digital deception thrives. 1. Anonymity shields accountability. Online users can fabricate identities without real-world consequences. 2. Curated realities distort truth. People selectively present edited versions of their lives, making deception easier. 3. Text-based lies lack physical cues. Without facial expressions or body language, detecting falsehoods is significantly harder. 4. Rapid misinformation spreads easily. Digital deception can gain traction more quickly than real-world dishonesty. A study in Digital Communication Trends, 2019, suggests that habitual liars lie more frequently online than in face-to-face interactions, reinforcing deception through the use of selective storytelling. Online deception in social structures. Digital deception extends beyond personal lies. It shapes news, marketing, and even political narratives. Social media algorithms reward engagement, meaning emotionally driven falsehoods often spread further than factual information. Studies from the Psychology of Online Influence, 2018, reveal that fabricated viral stories trigger stronger emotional reactions, making people more likely to believe and share misinformation. Conclusion: navigating the world of digital deception. Understanding how habitual liars manipulate online interactions is crucial for recognizing deception in the digital age. Whether through fabricated identities, misinformation, or strategic falsehoods, the Internet offers endless opportunities for deception, but also provides the tools to expose the truth. Chapter 9: False Bravado when Overconfidence Masks Insecurity. The deception behind arrogance. Confidence is compelling. It commands attention, persuades audiences, and projects authority. But when confidence becomes a mask for deeper insecurities, it transforms into false bravado and exaggerated performance designed to conceal vulnerability. Habitual liars often inflate their abilities, experiences, and self-worth to compensate for hidden fears of inadequacy. This deception isn't just about misleading others, it's about protecting themselves from the harsh reality of their own self-doubt. A case study: the illusion of invincibility. Consider David, a CEO known for his unshakable confidence and charismatic leadership. Journal of Behavioral Economics, 2021. He boasted about his business empire, his flawless decision-making, and his ability to foresee market trends before anyone else. But behind the scenes, David was crumbling under financial mismanagement. His company was failing, investors were pulling out, and employees were unaware of the looming collapse. Instead of addressing his mistakes, he doubled down on deception, projecting an exaggerated image of success to delay the inevitable. David's case highlights a critical truth about false bravado: it isn't about strength, it's about survival. The psychological mechanisms behind false bravado. According to research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology 2020, individuals who habitually exaggerate their self-confidence often display traits linked to narcissistic insecurity and defensive self-preservation. Key behavioral patterns include 1. Exaggerating achievements, overstating success to validate self-worth. 2. Deflecting criticism, avoiding honest feedback by projecting dominance. 3. Overcompensating for fear, displaying excessive confidence to mask anxiety. A study from Cognitive Behavioral Research, 2019, found that habitual deceivers with false bravado often feel emotionally disconnected, as their exaggerated personas replace authentic relationships with performative interactions. The long-term consequences of overcompensated confidence. While false bravado may succeed temporarily, its long-term effects are damaging. Loss of credibility. Once deception is exposed, trust erodes quickly. Emotional exhaustion. Maintaining an exaggerated identity becomes mentally draining. Increased isolation. Habitual liars often push away genuine relationships to sustain their false self-image. Conclusion. Recognizing the masks behind false bravado. False bravado is not true confidence. It is a fragile shield designed to protect insecurity. Understanding how habitual liars use exaggerated self-assurance helps reveal the vulnerabilities they fear most. Chapter 10. The influence of environment. Do society and culture encourage lying? The collective acceptance of deception. Lying is often condemned on an individual level, but in many ways, society rewards deception. From polished advertising campaigns to exaggerated social media personas, dishonesty has been woven into everyday interactions, sometimes so subtly that it goes unnoticed. The question isn't just whether people lie, it's whether culture itself incentivizes deception. A case study, the corporate lie. Consider Jacob, a marketing executive who built his career on inflating brand narratives. Journal of Business Ethics, 2020. He wasn't selling fraudulent products, but he wasn't selling the truth either. Through carefully curated storytelling, Jacob turned mediocrity into innovation, using selective statistics and emotionally persuasive tactics to shape public perception. His deception wasn't personal, it was institutionalized, encouraged by the competitive pressures of his industry. Years later, when investigative reports exposed misleading claims across the entire company, Jacob expressed genuine confusion. "This is how things have always been done," he said. It wasn't about lying. It was about crafting a vision. His case reflects a deeper issue. When deception is normalized within industries, cultural structures, and everyday communication, habitual lying becomes not just accepted, but expected. The role of cultural conditioning. Research from the Journal of Cultural Psychology, 2019, suggests that different societies encourage deception in distinct ways. 1. Strategic lies for social harmony. In collectivist cultures, deception may be employed to avoid conflict or maintain social harmony. 2. Competitive deception in business. Many industries reward exaggerated success stories, leading professionals to lie for advancement. 3. Media manipulation. From political propaganda to biased news reporting, public narratives are shaped by the selective presentation of truths.